Hey everyone, it's Ryan with This Smart House. Now I've just received something special in the mail. The new Wyze V3 Pro. This was just announced back in the first week of November, and I believe they're now shipping. You may be wondering why the Pro title added to this instead of calling it a version 4. You may be also wondering if this is a worthy upgrade for your version 3s, or if you should just stick on that generation. Now I'm gonna try not to bore you with all the details, but I wanna give you a quick overview of what's changed, what stayed the same, and tell you who I think should buy this camera. So at the top, let's look at the price difference. The original version 3 is currently retailing for $36. That price has moved around a bit during the pandemic, but it hovers between $30 and $36. The new V3 Pro is between $50 and $56. So we'll see here in a minute why the $20 price difference. Now the first area we're going to look at is the design. They've kept most of the same design elements from the version 3. Honestly, to me, they both look like the robots from Mitchell's vs. the Machines.
We are humans.
We are.
For example, we consume food in the traditional human manner. Observe.
Great movie, by the way. They still use the same hinge mount that allows for multiple mounting options. It also has the same magnetic base and washer that comes in the kit. That allows you to mount it anywhere very easily. It also has the same undercarriage, sealed buttons, and sealed SD card slot, just like the original version 3. You can still remove the base, and it has a 1/4-20 mount to use a standard tripod. Overall, about the same form factor. Now, let's look at the differences. Now you'll notice they've gotten rid of the pigtail connector on the back of the new version. It also comes with a USB cable that seats into the back to create a seal. So I'm not sure if you're gonna be able to get away with using any standard micro USB cable because of the water seal on the back, but I did shoot a note off to Wyze to ask if the IP rating is maintained even with a third-party cable. Now the new camera retains the same IP65 rating as the version 3, which means they can be mounted outdoors without any worry about them shorting out due to water. They do now offer a special outdoor rated power cord if you need to run a longer distance or you need to connect into an outdoor outlet. This is not a required purchase at $13.99, but is a nice option if you need the waterproof power adapter. It is compatible with both the original V3 and the new V3 Pro. Now a few differences that you see here on the front is on the new Pro version, there's a ring around the lens indicating the 2K sensor and the 1.6 f-stop aperture. The other glaring difference is the included spotlight that's built right in. This means the camera has color night vision and a security spotlight without having to have the extra add-on that you had to use for the version 3 original. So that's pretty much it for the design changes, but we all know that you didn't come here to see the differences in design. So let's take a look at the features. Hey, it's Editor Ryan here. Two quick footnotes before we head into the features section. The first one being all video you're seeing come directly from the cameras and are downloaded from my phone. I have upscaled them to 4K to match the rest of the format of this video. So effectively that means I scaled up the footage 2 times on the Wyze V3 Standard, and on the Wyze V3 Pro I did it 1.5 times or 150%. This is just so there was no black bars around the outside of the screen. And the second one is all audio examples you hear from either the camera speakers or recorded through their microphone have been enhanced in Premiere so that you can actually hear the difference in the quality. If not, it would just sound very muddy and very quiet. So these have been just enhanced with the standard Essential Sounds package in Premiere. If you'd like to see any of the original clips, I have them all in the blog post listed here below. So let's get back to the features. Now, of course, the biggest difference between these cameras is the new 2K sensor that yields a recording resolution of up to 2560 by 1440. This is up from the 1080p, which is 1920 by 1080 resolution from the version 3. This will help you make out details a little bit better or giving you a slightly further digital zoom. Now, if you look at the footage side by side, you can see a slight reduction in the field of view of the new Pro camera. It isn't much, and these sort of changes do happen when you update the sensor. Now the biggest selling point of the version 3 was the Starlight sensor's excellent night vision. Unfortunately, the new sensor on the Pro doesn't seem to have the same range or clarity as the version 3 sensor. Again, if you look at the side-by-side comparison, you'll see that you can make out a little bit more detail in the distance on the version 3 versus the version 3 Pro. Now I know these criticisms are a bit nitpicky and mostly down to personal preference. But the fact that the older camera has a slightly better infrared night vision than the new sensor is why I'm calling the night vision for the V3 Standard. Now you do have the option for color night vision if you use the included 70 lumen spotlight on the version 3 Pro. Now this was an optional add-on for the original version 3 to support color night vision, but it required purchasing a separate accessory. One more point of clarification, both cameras are capable of color night vision when the infrared lights are turned off, but the original V3's picture is much brighter when not using any lights. Now if you've watched any of my other camera overview videos, you will see that competitors in this space like Eufy and Onwode have added onboard person detection to their cameras. This allows the marking of recordings and notifications when a person is verified by the camera in the shot. thus reducing false positives due to normal motion. Now the version 3 Pro has onboard person detection included, which is a really nice addition if you're like me and like to keep as much of this stuff on site as possible. Now this is really only going to be a benefit if you equip your version 3 Pro with a micro SD card. This enables 24/7 onboard recording, and with the person detection makes searching for an event super helpful. We'll discuss things like vehicle and package detection in the next section. Now one of the questions I get asked often is about the audio quality of the camera for both listening and talking. I know a lot of users were disappointed with the audio quality on the version 3, so here's a quick demo of each. For this first audio test, we're going to test the microphone inputs on each of the cameras one at a time at different distances.
This is an audio test of the V3 standard at about 10 feet at a conversational volume. This is an audio test of the Wyze V3 Pro at about 10 feet away in a conversational volume. This is the audio test of the Wyze V3 standard at about 25 feet at a conversational volume. This is an audio test of the Wyze version 3 Pro at about 25 feet at a conversational volume.
For this next test, I'm recording the Wyze camera's output using the shotgun microphone on my main camera. This is at about 10 feet.
This is an audio output test from a original V3 at about 10 feet using the camera's microphone. It's an audio test on a V3 Pro at about 10 feet on the camera's microphone.
So you can see here that the new version 3 Pro has a slightly better audio output and a slightly better microphone. So if audio is important, this is probably the right choice for you. Now on the Pro, they've boosted the siren volume to 89 decibels, up from 80 decibels on the version 3. Now you've looked at all the major features of the version 3 Pro versus the version 3 standard. Let's take a look at the upgrades it gets in the software department. So when you first open up the app and select one of the new Pro cameras, you'll notice the interface is completely different than that of the version 3. They've included a lot of new features right up front. When you first power on the camera, you may notice the new focus mode is active. What this does is automatically zoom in and track any motion in the frame. It's a little disorienting at first, especially in an area with a lot of high traffic, but this is great for something like a driveway where you're only going to get motion that you actually care about. They've also used the white space under the controls to show you the last motion events with the thumbnail image. It also shows you the type of activity that set off the recording. There are different little icons next to where the time and date that indicate whether it was a person detection, motion detection, or audio detection that set it off. If we click the SD card button, you'll notice the slider here, which allows you to go through and review all of the recordings. It allows you to review the 24/7 recordings in a nice little slider configuration. This is much improved over previous cameras where there was a left to right slider. It was really difficult to navigate, and so this is definitely a nice improvement. You also have options in here to take a photo and record a clip that you can send out separately from the 24/7 recording. Now they moved a lot of the live view controls up to the screen around the live image. When you click on the image of the camera, you'll get a lot of standard options like changing the resolution, enabling and disabling the microphone and speaker, and you also have the option of turning on and off the spotlight manually. Now, of course, this is an option if you have a V3 equipped with the spotlight accessory. So if we go into settings, we have most of the standard options like being able to change the name of the camera. Going into the detection setting, you can set the sensitivity for both motion and sound detection. Under the recordings tab is a new setting to allow you to either set up only motion-based recording or using the smart detection like person detection. Also under the event recording section is the smart detection section, where you can turn on and off which type of AI-based detection you want to use. Of course, if you want to use anything other than person detection, you'll need to subscribe to the Cam Plus subscription, which uses their cloud-based AI engine for those additional items. Another limitation of not having Cam Plus is the recording cooldown is set to 5 minutes, which means after an event is recorded, there'll be a 5-minute delay until it can record again based on person, motion, or sound. Now this does not affect if you have an SD card installed. It will still record 24/7 if you have that set up, but you will have a 5-minute gap in between the event bubble. So you'll still have footage, but you won't have notifications or those little bubbles added to the timeline during the cooldown. Then under notifications, we have the ability to enable and disable event notifications being sent to your phone. Now under alarm settings, this allows you to set a notification if the camera detects a smoke or CO alarm. This uses the onboard microphone and is also available on the V3 cameras. This only works if your detector uses the standard T3 or T4 alarm sounds. Next, you can change the spotlight control. So you can set it to automatically turn on when it detects motion, or you can set it to be only manual. And you can set what brightness level it turns on at. You can also schedule times when the spotlight is turned on automatically. Now in the advanced section is the same standard settings you find on the V3 for managing on-screen displays, status lights, etc. Now that we've taken a look at all the new features, let's talk about my initial impressions of the new V3 Pro. Let's look at who shouldn't buy this camera. This really applies to both the V3 standard and the V3 Pro. Now I wouldn't recommend buying this camera if you're wanting to exclusively use it for RTSP or another NVR like Frigate or Blue Iris. If you've watched my videos on the Wyze RTSP firmware or the Docker bridge, you know that it's possible on the version 3 standard camera, but it's been fairly unreliable. They haven't announced if any official RTSP firmware support will be available for the V3 Pro, but I don't think it's going to happen as it seems like they've dropped support for the standard V3 firmware. Of course, both these cameras are compatible with the Docker Bridge project, and that's a good option only if you have an extremely strong Wi-Fi network. These cameras have a tendency to drop on and off my Wyze Bridge in certain parts of the house. I'd recommend looking for something that's Ethernet connected if you're wanting to go the route of using a separate NVR. On that same subject, if you have weak Wi-Fi, these cameras are going to give you some trouble. And that's across the board for all small cameras like this. I have a pretty strong Wi-Fi network, and I still struggle with cameras occasionally falling off my Wi-Fi, most likely due to interference from my neighbors. Now, of course, Wyze has just introduced their new Wyze Mesh Router, which I'll be reviewing here in a few weeks, which should hopefully help if you have weak Wi-Fi. Now quickly, let me give you my opinion on who should buy which camera. Obviously, if you're looking for extra resolution for high traffic areas, or areas where you're gonna have a long distance where you'll need the extra resolution to pick out the details in the distance, or if you wanna add a spotlight for security or color night vision, then this makes sense because it's already built in. Or if you want the new software features like Smart Focus or the new timeline, then you'll have to upgrade to the V3 Pro. Now for the last two, I don't know if they're planning on upgrading the V3 standard to add those options on. Now on the other hand, if you wanted to use the infrared night vision, or you're going to be primarily using this camera indoors, then I think I would stick with the version 3 standard and save yourself some money. I think there's very few use cases for using the spotlight indoors. You'll end up just blinding somebody anyway. And as I mentioned before, the black and white night vision on the version 3 standard outperforms the version 3 Pros. So again, I would stick with the version 3 standards for interior cameras. And I know what some of you are going to say about having inside cameras and the security risks, but if you chose to have indoor cameras, then the version 3 standard is probably the way to go. Just be aware of what you're recording. So to sum it up, if you're going to be using it in outdoor high traffic areas, or you want color night vision, go with the V3 Pro. If you're going to be using it indoors, or you're going to rely solely on the black and white night vision, go with the V3 standard. So whichever way you decide to go, picking up either one of these cameras is a good start for any smart home. These cameras still pack a significant punch for an extremely low price point. This allows you to place more cameras almost anywhere around your house and get great coverage and security. If you do decide to pick up any of these cameras, please use the links in the description below. These are affiliate links and they do help the channel. I have a link to both the official Wyze website and Amazon, so make sure you check both because Wyze does frequently run deals on just their website. Now, if you have any additional questions about either the V3 Standard or Pro, feel free to leave them in the comments below. My previous video on the V3 Standard camera was one of my most popular ones so far, and I've gotten over 400 comments, and most of those are questions from viewers like you. I try to answer every question to my best knowledge, so feel free to leave any questions in the comments or join our Discord server. If you'd like to check out our other smart home product overviews, check the top playlist. Or if you want to see all my videos on Wyze products and integrations, click on the bottom one. And as always, make sure you subscribe to the channel by clicking our logo right here. And if you're watching this in December, happy holidays, and I'll see you in the next video.